Hi, it's Davina House. I'm in my Hadouken t-shirt and I have a little story to tell you. If you watched my Monte Cristo breakfast and dinner video, you'll know that I biked to the farmer's market. I should say I am not a skilled cyclist, and on my way to the farmer's market, I got distracted while biking. I suddenly saw the signs for the Kittitas County Master Gardener's plant sale. I should have remembered that I received emails about it, and I also sent out emails about it to friends of mine, other sowers and such, and I had just forgotten to order any plants from them. So I tried to hook a Yui on my bicycle on gravel, which didn't actually turn out very well. But even though it didn't turn out very well, I wasn't actually hurt. I just laid over my bike at like 2 miles per hour. There's people who can speed walk faster than I cycle. And I managed to get a little hole in the knee of my jeans. So this is actually a little bit of a blessing, because I had meant to do a follow-up video for patching jeans that involves opening up the side seam when the pants are too narrow or too bulky to get in to stitch on a patch. So we're going to actually do that in this follow-up sewing repair video. Okay, so one of the things that you need to do is, when you know that you're going into a narrow pant leg or maybe the narrow elbow of a shirt to do a patch, you have to choose which seam that you're going to go in by. The inside seam, usually on jeans, is thicker. See how this one has this top stitching there? Sometimes it'll actually have extra stitching and things like that there. So usually I end up going on the outside, and that can be problematic to some people because that's the part that a lot of people see. So you have to be very careful as you're seam ripping it out. Now, I know I showed before there's different types of seam rippers. I like this style here. It's got kind of a blade hook. It's very similar to the type of blade that would be used in surgery for removing stitches and things like that from somebody who needed stitches in surgery. And then there's this style of seam ripper that is very common and comes in most repair kits. You can use either one, but this is my preferred style. So I'll show you how to rip out with both of them, beginning with my favorite. My hole is right here in the knee, so I'm going to come to the side seam and I'm going to get really close in and try to find a thread to pick. So I pull apart the fabric, and they stitch this with a very dark blue as to hide in the seam. And so I'm probably going to follow suit. And I just cut one thread at a time and spread it. So that's one way of slowly picking through thread at a time. And that's what I like this sort of scalpel style for. Now, you can also use this style, and it's very similar. You push it in between two stitches, and then you slide it along and it slices. See how that sliced 3 at a time? Just get it inside there and gently push. So this one is sometimes faster for people because they feel a little bit safer hooking it in there and then going along the edge. I just find this is more versatile because I can also use it for buttonholes and the like whenever I need to punch in and cut a small hole. But this is also a very useful tool, and I actually do use both when I'm sewing. Now, I'm not done yet because jeans usually have serging to them, some sort of overlock stitch on the inside. So let's turn the leg inside out and see what we're looking at. Yeah, I scratched myself a little bit. That'll come out in the wash with a cold wash though. So I've gotten the first bit of stitching out. You can see how most of that is gone, but now I still have the overlock to deal with. So we'll start with the usual, and if I just get these overlock stitches, I won't quite have released the serging. See, it's not quite letting go yet. So you're going to have to do basically double the work, not only getting the looper stitches, but every few stitches get out the straight stitch that's part of that overlock. So I'm going to now go in with my scalpel style and show you how that one would work. It's very similar. You just hook underneath the loopers and they cut, and then grab a little bit of that straight stitch. Every few straight stitches, take out a couple. And then with a few nice little tugs, we've now got this starting to be open. I'm going to go back to the right side of the jeans. Now, how far am I going to open this? Well, how big do I need it to be able to get in there and patch it? Now, I think I'm actually going to do a larger patch. I think I might go a little bit below the knee and part way up onto the thigh. So I'm actually going to, let's see, that's going to be doing about 7 inches to 8 inches open on the side, and I'm just going to put a really large patch. I might even, just to make both legs as equally stable, I might even do the same to the leg that doesn't have a hole in it, just so that both of the legs are stiffened up and protected. So I'm going to keep undoing this until I have about an 8-inch opening so that I can get in and work inside this leg. Okay, so here I am, and I actually ended up opening this about 10 inches. I've got my hole right here, lovely marked by my human red marker. Yeah. And I'm going to be using some scrap denim that I have from a cheap pair of jeans. I just picked it up at the thrift store to use as patches. And I think I'm going to just trim this down. Now, I could make its grain match with the grain of the original jeans, but I think what I'm going to do is, because this denim has no stretch and mine is actually a little bit elasticy, I think I'm actually going to, instead of going with grain, I'm going to do the opposite. So the warp and weft, on jeans, the warp and weft, some of it is white and some of it is blue. I'm just going to reverse the direction of that. So instead of the white going across this way on the patch, the white is going to go up and down on the patch. I'm not quite sure that it makes a huge amount of difference, but that's what I'm just choosing to do. Plus, it works a little bit better with the dimensions. I'm going to cut the patch slightly narrower than the leg of my jeans, like that, and then I'm going to stitch it in. Now, do I want to put in some fusible web first? Maybe I will, particularly around that little abraded spot to hold those fibers together. That will not last forever, so I'm also going to have to do some top stitching to that in a color of blue that will match. But these knees are going to be pretty difficult to match up, because I mean, look how dark it is down here and how light it is actually on the knee. So I'm probably going to need to change colors of my thread so that I can have dark blue around the outside of the patch and a lighter blue right over the top of the hole. So this now gets to go to my iron for a little bit of fusible web on that hole, my sewing machine for the stitching around, and then switching out some thread. Okay, here I am at the ironing board, and put down a little bit of fusible web. I put down more than I probably need to do. I could have just done over the abraded spot, but I decided to do a little bit more than that to make sure that the whole area was very stabilized and making sure that I have no wrinkles underneath, and hit it with that hot iron. What we're doing here is we're melting that fusible web. Remember, it's like hot glue gun glue, only done all cotton candy like. So when you hit it with this hot iron, it melts and does its gluey business. But over time, being put into a hot dryer and hot washes in the laundry, it will stop holding as well, because every time it gets hot, it gets softened, and the friction in the dryer slowly will pull this patch off. So that's why I always like to stitch around the exterior edge of the patch, and don't trust just the hot glue, because eventually it'll peel off. So this is being held in place by a little bit of stitch witchery right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch around the exterior. I've got a dark blue thread that I'm using for this, and then when I go to the right side, I've got a lighter blue thread that I'll do right over the hole that's there on the jeans. But I can go in from the side of the jeans instead of having to bunch up the whole leg area. Regular stitch, I'm going to put it at a 2 length. I'm going to move the needle far over to the left so that it's close to that edge of this patch. Forward, back, and forward. Put the needle down, give it a pivot, and forward. Needle down. Okay, let's check this out from the right side. Okay, it's pretty much invisible along the sides. On the across, right where it gets a little bit lighter, you can just barely see it. That's one reason why I like the smaller stitches for that. Okay, now I'm going to change my top thread out for something a little bit lighter that will blend in. It's one of the tricks about denim. You have to have a variety of blues, because even on the same pair of jeans over time, some parts will end up lighter than others. So right over the scuff area, I'm gonna stitch a little bit of a straight stitch there, and now I'm going to change to a zigzag. I'm going to put it to a 1 length, but I'm going to have it as wide as possible. And back stitch. And I've got a little bit there, so I'm going to go over that area too. Forward and back stitch. And that should be it. Cut threads. So, here I have my patch all finished up. I will trim these little whiskers. You know what, I'm going to restitch the seam first, make sure that it's all lined up, and then do the overlock. That's the smart way of doing it. So now that my patch is in the right spot, I'm going to stitch up the side seam, and I'm going to return back to that dark blue. Okay, back to straight stitch this time. I'm gonna have it on 2.5, 3 length. If I was trying to do this super fast, I might go with a 4, but the more stitches per inch, the stronger it is. So I wouldn't actually go much past a 3. I'd stick with a 2 or a 3 in length. Start a little bit above where your seam ribbing was, so you're going to have some overlap. Forward, back, forward. And we're just trying to go right over the top of where we were before. Forward and back. Okay, now let's double check that we've stitched right where that seam was before we go to the serger, before we do all that, just in case we need to undo something. Okay, that looks pretty good. It looks like I got a little bit off right here, but I don't think it's by much. So that looks pretty good to me. So I'm gonna go through, look for all these whiskers to trim, then I'm gonna switch over to my serger, show you how to do that part. Now, if you don't have an overlock machine, that's okay, but jeans are originally made with a lot of overlock stitching to keep them from fraying. So you could just do a zigzag stitch along this seam to keep it from unraveling, but it's better if you have a serger. So I'm going to get this underneath my serger. I'm going to position it so I've got some overlap with the stuff that I didn't pull out. And I'm just gonna slowly feed this through. Now I'm not really cutting off anything except for loose threads that are hanging off the side. I'm really just trying to keep things as they were. Okay. Snip off excess. And now my jeans are totally patched. So let's go to the other room, see how it looks in the sunlight. All right, there we go. There's the knee. I suppose I could have picked a slightly lighter blue for that little patch, but I think that worked okay. The dark blue stitching is basically invisible around the outside of that patch. So that is all finished. Thanks for watching Jean Patch Part 2. Stay crafty.